Yo, what is up? So I've got the Dallas Cowboys depth chart up here, so I'll just go through it and position by position, give my thoughts on the roster. So the first position, receiver. Yeah, very strong position for the Cowboys. Probably their receiver group in general is probably one of the strongest in the league. Like their top three receivers are very good. Of course, they've got Amari Cooper, who's a very underrated wide receiver. I think he just gets open so easily. Like he will drop some passes, but it's not that big of a deal. Like he's just such a consistent receiver at getting open. So that's amazing number one receiver. And then also Michael Gallup's a pretty reliable receiver on the other side. He's a good vertical threat, kind of just good all around player. Just makes some good splash plays. Can sometimes disappear at points. You're just like, where's Michael Gallup? But then he'll show up and just have an amazing play. I don't think he'll be here after this year. They could maybe even trade him if they see something from like Simi Fehoko and Cedric Wilson that they really like. They could get probably some good value for Michael Gallup. And then CeeDee Lamb also. He could probably play the slot. He did that mostly last year, was good at that. So you could maybe just completely transition to that. But all these players are versatile. Like all of them can play the slot on the outside. So I think they'll just use him all over the place pretty much. He might play majority of the slot snaps, CeeDee Lamb. And he was very solid last year. So I think he could take a step up. And they've got some pretty good depth also, like Simi Fehoko. I like that draft pick. I think he's a pretty similar player to Michael Gallup. Could be a good replacement in the future. And Cedric Wilson even like showed some flashes when like players weren't playing. When he got in the game, he looked like a pretty decent receiver. So that's a good player. Like Malik Turner and stuff. They got some other players. Like they got some undrafted players like Osiris Mitchell is a big receiver, and TJ Vasher, who's just kind of a speed threat, pretty small player, but yeah. So they got the receiver position is pretty decent. And then the O line, Tyron Smith. If he's healthy, he's one of the best tackles in the league, but he's never healthy, so we'll just have to see. Maybe he has a fluke here where he's actually healthy. I doubt it, but if he is healthy, then that's very good for them. Like if it's kind of the case with their whole offensive line. If they stay healthy, then their O line can be pretty nice. Like their offense as a whole, if everybody stays healthy, which is kind of every single team pretty much, but theirs is like really strong. Like if all those receivers, O line, quarterback play, and running backs get back to like Ezekiel Elliott level, then I think their offense can be very explosive. And then they've also got Brandon Knight and Josh Ball to back them up. I don't really love the Josh Ball pick. He's got like some off-field concerns, but he's a decent player. Like I don't think it's a bad backup, and they do need some more depth. So I think he can maybe bring that. And left guard Conor Williams, pretty decent. Like he's not very injury prone, so that's also a good plus. And they also drafted Matt Farnick from where's that? Nebraska. So that just gives you a backup. He's a pretty decent prospect actually. He's actually looked pretty good in his film. And then Tyler Biadasz, center. I think Connor McGovern could also start at center. One of these dudes probably going to be a battle in camp. I think Connor McGovern could definitely win it, but Tyler Biadasz, young rookie last year, showed some decent play. So one of these dudes we'll just have to see. And then Zach Martin, right guard, one of the best guards in the league. He can also play tackle if injuries happen, so that's a good player. Again, just stay healthy. And then La'el Collins, another pretty young, good tackle. He was just injured last year, like the whole offensive line, but that's a solid player. Even Ty Nsekhe is a very good backup. Like pretty good swing tackle also. So if any of these tackles get injured, I could see him stepping in and being pretty consistent. Terrence Steele is kind of a versatile backup. Like they've got some pretty good depth now. They probably need a bit more, but it's fine. And then tight end Blake Jarwin's an okay tight end. Like their tight end group's not amazing. They got some they're reliable players like Blake Jarwin, Dalton Schultz are both pretty reliable tight ends that you can probably count on to get some good production. But yeah, Blake Jarwin probably be that number one tight end. And I mean further down, like Jeremy Sprinkle's a pretty decent third tight end probably. He'll probably be that. He's pretty decent as kind of a blocking tight end primarily. And then Nick Ubonks actually is a pretty decent pickup that they got in free agency, undrafted free agency. He's a very good athlete. Didn't really have a lot of play at Michigan. I think possibly he could make the roster on like a fourth tight end. I think he probably makes the practice squad because he's pretty raw. Doesn't really have a route tree, so that's maybe somebody for the future. Then quarterback, of course, Dak Prescott, who they re-signed. Massive contract. It's going to be pretty hard to build a team because of all the money you gave to your quarterback, but you're going to have to do that, so I don't mind it. He's a good quarterback. He's not amazing, but when he was playing for them, like, they were a good team until he got injured, so yeah. And I mean, the backup position, Cooper Rush, Garrett Gilbert, Ben DiNucci, they don't really got a reliable backup, so if Dak Prescott does get injured, it's not looking amazing. And running back, Ezekiel Elliott, if he gets back to the form that he had, like, in his first few years, and he can be probably a top 5 running back in the league, but I just don't know if he really has that into him. Like, I don't really know how good he is, but if this offensive line is healthy, then of course he can be productive. Like any running back can be productive besides a amazing offensive line. I do like Tony Pollard though. I think he could be a starter. Like, if they want to move on from Ezekiel Elliott, I think Tony Pollard could step into that number 1 running back role. He's very underrated. I think like when he was playing, he showed some better play than like Ezekiel Elliott at points last year. Like, very good pass catcher and runner. So it's very good player. I like that. And then defense, the defensive line, they've got a lot of players that they could use in a lot of different ways. Like, they're gonna probably rotate a lot of dudes in, but of course DeMarcus Lawrence kind of locked into that defensive end position. He's good at that, so that's fine. He's like kind of declined a bit, but he's still pretty reliable. Good run stopper also. Bradley Anae, not really an amazing athlete, but he's okay as a backup, I guess. And then it kind of, when you get to the interior defensive line, it gets a bit like confusing because they've just got so many players really. Like Carlos Watkins could definitely get some playing time. Tristan Hill hasn't really been a good defensive tackle. He's kind of more of a nose tackle, also just not very good though. So I think he could possibly lose his spot at that position. I do like Osa Odighizuwa. I think he could get a lot of playing time. He's a pretty versatile player, very good athlete. So I would like him to get like more playing time than Carlos Watkins. I'd like him to start over him, and like Tristan Hill and Neville Gallimore also, who they got down here. Who, I mean, he showed some flashes last year. Just was a bit of a down year really, but it's only his first year. People really liked him coming out of college, so maybe you could see him taking a step up. So we'll just have to see. So they got some players there. The other players, Jesus, I gotta punch the screen. Quentin Bohanna, gee, he's a really big nose tackle, pretty much good run stopper, and they do need to stop the run. I think he would probably be better than Tristan Hill. That Tristan Hill is not good at stopping the run. Not really good at anything. Like, Tristan Hill could get bumped all the way down, and Quentin Bohanna, I think, could be a more reliable run stopper. Same with Austin Fowler, who's literally just a run stopper, just massive player who just eats up a ton of blocks. So he could possibly make the roster. They've also got Brent Urban, who will probably get some decent playing time. He's alright at points. He's not really that amazing of a player, but he's pretty consistent, so it's fine. Randy Gregor on the other defensive end, he showed some pretty promising play last year. Maybe it could be a breakout player next year for the Cowboys. We'll just have to see. They also drafted Chauncey Goldstein. I think it was a bit of a reach in the draft, but just overall, Chauncey Goldstein, I think he'd be a good rotational player, so I like that. He's also got some position versatility. And then we move on to the 2 middle linebackers. I mean, well, just linebackers, really. I mean, they've got a lot of linebackers, basically 4 of the big linebackers. Micah Parsons, who they drafted, I assume he'd start straight away. You drafted him 11th overall, and he's a very good linebacker. It's going to be helping the run game a lot. Also can rush the passer very well on blitzes, even on as an edge rusher. Like, he'd probably play edge, but probably not for the Cowboys. Also, Jalen Smith, he's pretty decent linebacker. Like, they don't really got amazing coverage of linebackers, but Jalen Smith and Micah Parsons, they'd be a pretty good pairing. Liam Van Der Esch, I doubt he's here after this year. It doesn't seem like it, really. They can maybe move on from because they did pick up a lot of linebackers. Uh, he's decent if he's healthy. Like, his rookie year was very good, and then he's just been injured. It's kind of unfortunate because he could have been a really good player. Just kind of not really amazing in coverage, just since that injury, and everything else has kind of declined. They also got Keanu Neal listed here. Yeah, he's basically a linebacker. Yeah, he plays safety at Atlanta. He's just a box safety pretty much. So he'll play like some coverage also. He'll probably cover. I mean, he'll be a better coverage player than the other linebackers they got. So that's a plus. You get a good coverage player who also has size to play linebacker. Other players, Jabril Cox, who they also drafted. He probably won't get a ton of playing time unless injuries happen. I mean, he'll be an impact on special teams straight away, I guess. But I just thought Jabril Cox would get drafted way over than he did. It was a bit of a surprise. And Terrell Basham, he's more of an edge rusher, so kind of outside linebacker. So he could probably, I think he'd be a backup for DeMarcus Lawrence, would be a better position than like Bradley Anae or possibly Randy Gregor. He'd just be a backup to those two because he's a pretty decent rotational player. Not really a starter, but yeah. Anthony Hines, pretty decent depth player. And then corner, I mean, their secondary, it's not really looking amazing as a whole. They've got Trayvon Diggs at that right corner. He could probably take a step up. He showed some promising play near the end of the year, which is good to see from a rookie corner because it's a really hard position to play. So maybe he takes a step up next year. Jordan Lewis in the slot probably. He's not amazing, but he's serviceable, I guess, in the slot. It's probably better to get somebody back in your secondary who's more of a veteran presence, I guess. He's not old, but he's okay in the slot. Anthony Brown also. He could probably start at the other cornerback position. I mean, him and Kelvin Joseph, who they drafted, and Kelvin Joseph in the second round, he definitely has a chance to start just because their secondary is not that good. I think maybe you start Anthony Brown straight away because it's just the cornerback position really hard to play for rookies. So maybe just get Kelvin Robinson and Kelvin Joseph in that fourth cornerback role, which he will get some playing time at a fourth cornerback role because cornerbacks' injuries happen and teams really use like 5 corners a lot. So I think that's good. Even 4 corners like get significant playing time. The other corners, I mean, Nahshon Wright, who they drafted super early to draft Nahshon Wright. He wasn't even a good prospect, wasn't a good athlete. So that was just not a good pick. But he's got really good length and size for the cornerback position, but that's kind of it. That's the same with Israel Mukamu, who they drafted. He's from South Carolina. He was pretty decent in college. Like, he was a pretty good pairing. Him and J.C. Horn were like a very good cornerback duo. He was just the worst cornerback, really, and just fell quite a lot. They got him listed as safety. That's a definite possibility. Like, either of these dudes could switch to safety. Maybe Nahshon Wright could switch to safety and Israel Mukamu sticks at corner. One of these dudes probably going to stay at corner. Both of these dudes, I think, could play safety. Israel Mukamu maybe has more upside at safety. He could maybe be a starter in the future. Like, he's a pretty smart player, so I like that. Thought that was a pretty good draft pick late. Rashard Robinson, Maurice Kennedy. Well, they got some depth players. They don't really. I think maybe another corner would be a good idea, but nah, not looking amazing. And then safety, Donovan Wilson was actually pretty decent, strong safety last year. When he got some playing time, he was pretty good. So yeah, definitely start him at strong safety. Free safety, Reggie Robinson probably not going to start. They picked up DeMonte Casey. I don't know why they don't have him listed there anyway. DeMonte Casey is definitely going to be their free safety, especially with Dan Quinn coming over. So DeMonte Casey is a pretty serviceable safety, so it's alright. I mean, Reggie Robinson is backup. Even being a third safety, gets some playing time. Then that's a pretty good player. Other safeties, Stephen Parker and Darian Thompson are pretty decent backups. So that's good. They've got some good depth at the safety. They also have some versatility at corner. So they're not horrible at the secondary, but they've got some holes and not amazing players. Like, I think they'll be better than last year at the secondary position, but maybe not much better. And then the special teams, punter. The only dude I know, Brian Anger. Is this a rookie or something? I don't know. I guess I have a camp battle. I assume Brian Anger probably win that. Greg Zuerlein, he's still fine. And I mean, kick return, Tony Pollard plays some kick return. He's good at that. Cedric Wilson could definitely, probably not CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb did play some. I think probably, I mean, maybe TJ Vasher, if he makes a squad, would probably just be for practice squad. I mean, just be for special teams. So possibly he's the returner if he does make a roster. I don't really see anybody in their secondary that could possibly start. So yeah, probably one of those receivers or running backs. So I mean, Cowboys roster, they definitely have a chance to win the NFC East. It just kind of depends on injuries for them, especially on the offensive line. I still think their defense isn't looking amazing. I think the front seven's good. It's just the secondary really isn't looking amazing. Because, I mean, they got really good linebackers and they got some talent on the defensive line and some pretty good depth at both of those positions. It's just when you get to that cornerback position, I think their safety position's not horrible, but they don't really got any, like, standout players, really, that are like, oh, yeah, that's a really good lockdown corner, or that's an amazing safety you got there. It's just kind of average players. And, yeah, we'll just have to see with the Cowboys. I think it could be good next year. Again, just depends on whatever happens. And if Mike McCarthy can coach the team well, we'll have to see with that. Still don't know if Mike McCarthy's a good coach. I hope you enjoyed, and see